All right, guys, welcome to class today. As you notice, I am sitting because we're going to be taking a look at the atlas today, and we are focusing on one country in particular, Russia. Now, I'm going to show you all of Russia on the political map of Russia, and I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to think about this. Here's the question. What do you notice about the cities in Russia? All right? Are you ready? Let's take a look. So we are going to start, by the way, this is Russia. We should know that Russia is the largest country on Earth. It is in both Europe and in Asia. I mean, think about it. Just giving a good map of Russia, let's see if I can keep the camera steady, you notice that it covers both of our pages in the atlas. So again, the question for our largest country on Earth, what do you notice about the cities? So let's start in Western Russia. So here's Western Russia. There's Moscow. We look over here. There's St. Petersburg. But let's take a look. So here is Western Russia, also called the European part of Russia. So there it is. We're looking. Again, what do you notice about the cities? We haven't gotten through all of Russia yet. So that, again, just reminding you of the question. Now, here's Yekaterinburg. Yekaterinburg is right near the 60-degree east longitude line. This is the dividing point between Western, also called European Russia, and Asian Russia, also called Eastern Russia. So we're at Yekaterinburg. So again, there we go. What do you notice about the cities? This is all Western Russia. We pass Yekaterinburg, meaning we've passed the Ural Mountains. And now here we are, Eastern Russia. So what do you notice about Eastern Russia and its cities? We go down to southeastern Russia, there's Vladivostok. Eastern Russia. Okay, hey, there's a few cities in the south. There's Yekaterinburg again. And now we're in Western Russia again. So what do you notice about the cities? Now, I'm hoping, if you're thinking about it, I'm hoping you realized, wait a second. All the cities seem to be in the west. There's very few cities in the east. And those cities that were in the east were way down south. Right? If you didn't notice, look at it again. There we go. We're a little bit slow. There's a little bit of lag in our camera time. So look, there you go. There's Western Russia. All of Western Russia. There's Yekaterinburg. So now we're passing into Eastern Russia. And then look. Whoop, where did all the cities go? There's very few. There's a couple towns there. There's a few, but nowhere near the concentration that we saw in Western Russia. Remember we said even the cities that we do see in the east, most of the big ones are in the south. Okay, that's weird. And then there's Yekaterinburg again. Now, here's a fact for you. And this is a fact that you need to write down. 77% of Russia's population lives in Western Russia. And think about it, Western Russia was the smaller section of Russia. So for that huge, large country, 77% of the population of Russia lives in the small western section of Russia. Only 23% live in the huge eastern section of Russia. Now, if we are going to use our brains, the first question we need to ask ourselves, why? When you have such a large country, why, and I think I said ourselves, we need to ask ourselves this question. Why would so many people choose to live in the smallest section of Russia and leave the rest to just 23% of the population? Now you gotta think about it. People don't just go, oh, okay, well, I just like the West better. I always like things that are West. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Why would people choose that when you have so many people choosing to live in the smallest section of a huge country? Why? Well, hey, let's take a look at our map. This is why geography is important. We can use geography to help us answer some questions. So let's take a look. So here's our atlas again. I'm in the eastern section of Russia, but if you notice, I'm here in the northeast section because I want to focus on the Arctic Circle. So there is the Arctic Circle. The broken line represents the Arctic Circle. Now look, if we follow the Arctic Circle, it cuts a pretty nice section into eastern Russia. And if we continue to follow it, by the time we get to western Russia, because there's Yekaterinburg there, by the time we get to western Russia, oh, it only cuts a really small section off of western Russia. But when we were in eastern Russia, that was a pretty large section of eastern Russia that is within the Arctic Circle. So I already know just from that, it's a lot colder in the eastern part of Russia than it is going to be in the west because more of the eastern section is in the Arctic Circle. So that's the first thing. Now remember, there are different kinds of maps, aren't there? So let's take a look at the climate map for Russia. So we're going to go this way. All right. So here we go. Now, climate map. We should always ask ourselves first, okay, wait a second. What do these colors mean? That means we always look at our map key before we try to figure anything out. So we look at our map key, see if we can make this a little bit clearer. There we go. If it's purple, dark purple, we have a continental climate with very short, cool summers. So think about it. A summer that's really short, and even then it's pretty cool, and not cool as in, hey, I'm really cool, but cool as in temperature-wise. I mean, think about it. Think about Georgia. Summers in Georgia. Does anybody in Georgia say, oh yeah, man, the summers are really short in Georgia? And when they do come to Georgia, it's really cool. Really? Nobody says that the summers are short in Georgia and that they're really cool. They are really cool. That the summer is really cool when it's here. But in the eastern part of Russia, that's summer. It's really short. It's very short. And it's pretty cool even when it does get there, temperature-wise. Now, again, there's purple, but notice the blue on the top there as we were in the really, really northern section of eastern Russia. That blue is tundra. Tundra, we're talking about the polar climate, and we're talking about tundra. Tundra is the last section of land, it's the last climate before you just hit nothing but snow. So tundra, you're not, with the temperature and the nutrients in the soil, you're going to have some shrubs and some short plants, but you don't have any trees. You certainly don't have any forests. But you're just going to have short plants and shrubs because you are nearing nothing but snow. And so you have tundra there as well in the eastern section. But for the most part, we're focusing on very short, cool summers. Now, let's take a look at Europe. So we're going to go to the European section of Russia. And let's take a look at the climate there. So take a look. Notice that, and by the way, the borders are hard to see, but this is Belarus, this is Ukraine. So this part right here, this is going to be Western Russia, okay? So just to keep that in mind. So that's Western Russia, kind of heading down to this area right here. All that's Western Russia. So let's look, what do we have? Okay, well, if we're looking at the pink, what's the pink mean? Oh, we have a continental climate, but short summers. But notice how it says it's short summers, but not that the summers have cool temperatures, just that the summers are short. So that already tells me that, you know what? It's going to be warmer in the western part of Russia. Also, take a look here. As we get down into the really southwestern part of Russia, okay, what kind of color is this? Well, now we've got a dry climate, kind of a dry climate with some rain. All right, so not quite desert. Desert's yellow. But this kind of orangish thing is more of a dry climate with some rain. Okay, that's very different from what we saw in eastern Russia. So that tells me that it's going to be warmer here. So that's going to answer my question. Okay, 77% of the people who are living in Western Russia live there because the climate is a lot warmer. Okay, well, here's a question that you need to ask yourself. Why? Always ask yourself why. Okay, if we see, wow, lots of people live in this one section, well, why? Because it's warmer. Well, why would people want to live in a warmer climate? And think about it. Think when people, hundreds and hundreds, or actually with Russia, you're talking about more thousands of years ago, would have first been in this section, started to build or try to make a living, start to build towns, things like that. Why would you pick that section? Those people weren't thinking, hey, I just want a vacation. So we're not thinking warm like we would think today in a first world country, going, you know what, I just like the weather. I feel I want to go swimming in my pool. No, what would be good for survival about living in a warmer climate versus a really cold climate? Now, I hope you're thinking, the first thing I hope you're thinking is, agriculture. Wait a second. Now, what is agriculture? Agriculture is farming, and farming is made up of two things: growing crops and raising livestock. So if you think about it, warmer climates allow me to actually grow food. And not just enough food to feed my families, but enough food for me to then be able to take the excess, meaning the extra food, and sell it. Also, with warmer climates, think about it, you can better use rivers and lakes because they're not going to freeze, or they're not going to freeze over for a long amount of time. So the warmer climates allow me to use rivers and lakes for trade. Sorry, my right hand was getting tired. So, do you use rivers and lakes for trade? You have agriculture. Just think about simple things like bathing, washing clothes. It's a lot easier to do in a warmer climate where you have water versus a colder climate where, yikes, taking a bath, listen, the water's going to be cold anyway, but it's a lot colder when you're in the Arctic Circle, don't you think? And also, not only that, but you can use that water for a lot more things because it's not turning to ice as fast. So those are simple reasons why people would move and want to stay in a warmer climate. Okay? So again, looking at this map here, we can see the climate map. We see why. We see why people would want to move to a warmer. We can think about the fact that Western Russia is warmer and people would want to move to a warmer climate. Now with agriculture, I'm going to show you this last thing. Look at the economic activities map. We're looking at Russia, and again, it's hard to see the borders, but here's Belarus, here's Ukraine. So we're going to Western Russia over here. Notice how much yellow we have for agriculture. And not only agriculture, but there's some orange in the really southwestern part of Russia. That's stock raising. Remember we talked about livestock? So agriculture, this map is using agriculture as farming, and then stock raising, talking about raising livestock, even though agriculture actually means raising livestock and growing crops. But look at how much yellow you have for agriculture in southwestern Russia. Okay? And just in western Russia. And then this green here, we have forestry. Awesome. And only this top section do we have nomadic herding, where basically you herd animals, but you have to move around. All right? Now, let's go to the Asian section of Russia. So remember, look at all that yellow, look at that orange. Now let's go to the western part of Russia. Sorry, the eastern part of Russia. Here's our economic activities map. Look there. Okay, so there's Mongolia. So we look here, this is eastern Russia. Now what do we see? Barely any agriculture. Only in this one southern section of eastern Russia do we even see any yellow. There's no yellow out here. So think about it. Why would I live here when I can't grow any crops? Or very few things can I grow. So we have some green for forestry in the south. That's looking at our key there. We have, mostly if you're going to make a living, you're going to have to do hunting, forestry. There's subsistence farming. Subsistence farming means you grow enough just to feed yourself, basically. Feed yourself and your family. There's no way with this weather that you can grow a lot of food to actually trade. And then we have nomadic herding, but there's a lot more purple for nomadic herding than we saw with Western Russia. So we see the effects that climate has. Agriculture is so important for any civilization. So the fact that there isn't a lot of area for agriculture because of the climate, most people live in the West. So that should hopefully answer your question. If you notice, we took a look at how does climate affect where people live. And by the way, climate is the long-term weather pattern over a period of time. So we saw how climate affects where people live, and then we were able to answer the question, okay, well, why do people live? Why do people choose warmth? Why would people want warmth? Okay? And it's more than just simply the 21st century, I just want to be able to swim in my pool. What are the benefits of living in a warmer climate? Now, your assignment is this. We looked at how climate affects where people choose to live. Now, I want you to think and come up with 3 other factors that affect where people choose to live. So we said climate affects where people choose to live. We saw that with the people in Russia. But what are 3 other things that affect where people choose to live? I want you to write that, I want you to type that, make sure it's in a sentence. Please make sure that your spelling is correct. Please make sure that you capitalize the first letter at the beginning of a sentence. Those are things that we should know by now. So come up with 3 other things that affect where people live. I want you to send that to me, okay? Again, if you have any questions, I'll be in conference. You can talk to me anytime. All right, take care, guys. Oh, there we go.